Our guy Kurt Warner, as you just heard the highlight, is in London. He called the Jets' loss and Aaron Rodgers' failures. That's among the things that come up in this conversation we recorded just a little while ago. But first, we had to ask, how did Caleb do yesterday to you, Kurt?
I liked it. I think what we're seeing just about every week is we're seeing progress. We're seeing him get more and more comfortable with what they're asking him to do, more and more comfortable in the pocket. Some beautiful reads yesterday of working through his progressions and getting off one quicker than he had been and moving on. A couple of my favorites were, I think it was a second touchdown pass to DJ where they had a fake bubble screen to the right. And normally you just stay to the right. They have two options down the field. Neither one of them were open, but normally you just come back to your screen there. And he worked to the right-hand side. Free safety kind of moved over there with the pump in his eyes, and he came all the way to the backside and hit the deep post for a touchdown, which I thought was beautiful. And then another play, one of my favorite plays when I played, something called 525 F post. They ran that in the game, and the defense played what we called one cop. So it's cover one, but they had a cop linebacker sitting in the middle of the field waiting for the quick post. He recognized that and was able to pop his feet and get all the way back to the backside, come back, threw a great ball. I think it was actually dropped on the play, but didn't really care if it was caught or dropped. Just the process for him was really, really good. So you're seeing progress, and you're seeing him what appears that he's more comfortable being able to know what he's seeing and working through the progression. So it was fun. You know, it never hurts to have a little bit of a running game. We've seen that the last couple of weeks, and they've looked a lot better when they've been able to run the football. But it's been fun to watch his progress through the first 5 weeks.
Yeah, every player and coach speaks to that progress week after week and how it keeps going, and that feels like a good sign in general. Last week, Kurt, we were all excited because he was efficient and didn't turn the ball over, and you threw a little water on it with your comments, and we had a brief good-natured tussle. Does last week's progress getting to that efficient, no turnovers place connect with this week? Because he was still efficient. The numbers are good and still protected the ball, but then also this week hit the explosives, which makes everything look better. So do they connect last week and this week?
Well, I think the hope is that they're connecting, because I see a lot of guys in the league that, hit the lottery or hit the jackpot one week and everything looks great. And you're like, okay, they found it. They're there. And then the next week they go back. Like I said, the biggest thing for me with Caleb is they're winning football games where as he's growing and learning, they're finding ways to win football games. That's the most important thing. And then to see small bits of progress. And so, a couple weeks ago, again, it's easy to fall in love with a good throw. It's easy to fall in love with the stats. But what I always want to see is his eyes in the right spot. We've been talking about it here for 5 weeks. And that to me is what tells me more than anything, even if you complete the pass, whatever, do your eyes go to the right spot? Or are you working through things? So I can watch quarterbacks play on film. And when I see their eyes go right, left, I know they have no idea what they're looking at. That just means we're trying to find somebody open. So my head's moving all over the place. When your head is slow and methodical, when it starts to the right and you see the progression, then it goes to the left and you're calm and poised, those are the things that I want to see. So I'm not looking for luck. I'm not looking for you dropping back and, hey, my first guy's open, I can throw it to that guy. Well, everybody in the NFL should be able to do that. I'm not looking for luck where, hey, just so happened I put my eyes here and the guy was open, so I threw it even though my eyes should have been somewhere else. What I'm looking for is the understanding of what I'm seeing on the defensive side and my eyes being in the right spot. And then when something's not open, being able to get my eyes to the right spot in my second part of my read and my third part of the read. And that's where I saw some real growth yesterday is I really felt like 2 or 3 times he was quick to see and then pop his feet and pop his eyes somewhere else. And that's what starts to get me excited, is that he knows what he's looking for to start things. And then he knows exactly where he's going from there, so he can get his eyes there and figure out what's going on beyond that, and then be able to make the plays from a secondary nature. And so So yes, I mean, I think it's all starting to connect a little bit. Where he was week one, where he looked uncomfortable, he couldn't get through his progressions. You know, he got stuck on number one. We've seen gradual improvement week in, week out, and then you're starting to see the talent and the throwing ability to come with it. You know, some of the other things that we saw in like weeks 3 and 4 was even when he got to the right place, the ball didn't come out like I saw it come out in college. You know, he's a very gifted thrower of the football and you know, has great touch on the ball. And he's not a guy that normally overthrows the ball. And by that, I mean, not throwing it too far, but throwing it too hard and, you know, being late on things and not having touch and throwing a catchable ball. And we saw that a number of times early. And you're starting to see, you know, the touchdown pass to DJ 2 weeks ago, you know, on that little stick pump route up and over the linebacker. And then some of the throws in this game where he's laying it out there and allowing his receivers to run under it. That's the Caleb Williams that I saw in college and showed me the ability to make different kinds of throws. And you're starting to see that. And a big part of it, I think, is because he's more and more comfortable with what he's doing, where he's going, and the process is slowing down for him.
Kurt Warner talking with Spiegel and Holmes about the Bears and Caleb Williams. Kurt, you played on one of the most prolific offenses ever with a bunch of guys that wanted their touches. The Bears are clearly not there yet, but you can see the vision of what Ryan Poles is trying to put together, where you have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet. You got a lot of guys that have to get fed. As a quarterback, what was your approach to making sure that everyone was happy?
My approach was to play the game in front of me and to teach the guys to understand what I was doing and for them to respect the way that I played the game. So, you know, it's very easy for guys to come back and say I was open, you know, throw it to me, get me the ball more, you know, get the ball into my hands. But when you can go on film, well, you know, it comes down to success, right? I mean, you know, guys can be much happier if they're not getting the ball, if the ball's going to the end zone, right? If you're making 12-play drives and you're finishing drives, that's the first thing that, you know, any good team player is going to be, yeah, I want the ball, but we're having success, so I can't argue as much. If you're not having success, then the superstars are like, give me the ball, like give it to me, just throw it to me and I'll make a play. But it's constantly teaching guys why you're doing what you're doing. And so the consistency of doing that and the consistency of talking to guys and going, okay, I know you're open over here, but my read is off of this guy right there. And that guy told me to throw it, you know, backside to Torrey, not to you, Isaac, or to you, Isaac, and not to you, Torrey, and whatever that was. And when they start to understand that and see that you know what you're doing, they start to respect you as a player, then it doesn't become as much about, especially from the quarterback standpoint, throw me the ball. Then it becomes more about the coordinator. Hey, okay, if you're designing plays and the plays are supposed to go to someone else, can you design some plays that are supposed, you know, that are going to go to me? And they start focusing on getting the right play calls so they get the football, not looking at the quarterback and going, why aren't you throwing it to me? So that became the process for me, was just constantly teaching guys why. And then, you know, the fortunate part is having success. It was much easier to deal with those guys and the egos that all players have, dealing with those egos when, you know, when you are able to go out and have success and guys are going to get their touches. And 1 week, a guy might get 12 touches and the next week they might get 2. And it's really dictated by what the defense is doing, not by me choosing someone else. And, you know, and then the other part of that. So, you know, been watching the Cowboys a lot the last couple of weeks. And a couple of weeks ago, they had a number of plays where they got one-on-one coverage on the outside. And so you have Brandon Cooks on one side, and then you have CeeDee Lamb on the other side. And there were a number of times in that game where in those one-on-one situations, Dak went to Brandon Cooks instead of CeeDee. Now, those are the ones that are a little bit harder. And those are the situations as a quarterback where if one of my guys wasn't getting a touch and I felt like everything was equal, that's when I would be a little more conscious of okay, Torrey hasn't got enough touches. One-on-one, same scenario. I like the matchup on both sides. Get the ball to Torrey, or vice versa, or to Fitz, or to Anquan, or whatever. And so those were the times I could be a little more judicious on making sure my guys, that weren't touching the ball got the ball. But most times it was really dictated by the coverage.
Boy, that's great stuff, and relatable for what we want the Bears offense to be. Two things on that. Hard to imagine, or I have to imagine it's difficult for a rookie to be the one teaching, some of those veterans, at least in terms of what he sees. But the other thing, Lawrence, I would have been here a long time before I would have come up with the 3 wide receivers on the Arizona Cardinals in 2008 who got 1,000 yards. Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, and Steve Breston. As Kurt Warner grew for 3,500 yards. We would have been here a long time before Steve Breston's name came up. But, Larry was all right when you fed Steve Breston, is what your point is.
Well, yeah, exactly. And we were happy because we were winning. And, we went to a Super Bowl and we were winning, division championships. And that's the stuff that ultimately, can kind of quell some of that ego from those guys, is realizing, we're having success, but also the other guys are making plays. If I was throwing it to Steve Breston 12 times a game and he was dropping 6 of them, I guarantee you Anquan and Larry would be in my ear going, what are you doing? Why are you throwing it to him? Find a way to throw it to us because he's not making plays. But when he's making plays, now everybody gets a chance to eat, and they know that if he's having success over there, it's going to lead to opportunities for them as well, because teams are going to have to start respecting what that guy can do. And, it was an interesting point you said, it's hard for a rookie to be able to lead and teach. Well, I've always believed that, as a leader, you have to earn the respect of your guys. And there's lots of different ways to earn respect. And one of the ways that I always tried to earn respect is I always wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. I always wanted to have the answers. I always wanted to be able to go to my receivers and be able to teach them and talk to them about why I needed them to do something, why I was doing what I was doing, to go into the offensive line room and know the protections better than they knew the protections. So I could talk to them about every scenario and say, this is what I need you to do. And I'll take care of this guy. I'm responsible for this guy. So it was one of the ways that, as I got into the league, that I went into those meetings and on the different teams I was on and said, this is how I'm going to earn respect. I'm going to study this stuff. I'm going to know this stuff. I'm going to know how it helps me and how it can make them better. And it was a way that I earned that respect, regardless of how long I had been with the team or how old I was at a particular time. It was something that I prided myself on. So we always have to look for ways to separate ourselves and to earn the respect of our guys. And that was one way that I chose to do it. And so I would study our protections heavily. So I didn't just, leave it up to an offensive lineman. And then if I got caught in a tough situation, point the finger at somebody else. I always wanted to know. I always wanted to be on top of it. I always wanted to have an answer, and I wanted to help those guys out because that was a way that helped me to earn respect in that room as well.
The Hall of Famer Kurt Warner with Spiegel and Holmes on 670 The Score. So after the Bears win yesterday, Cole Kmet referenced Caleb Williams, quote, understanding fronts and getting us into better checks for our run game, unquote. And I was like, oh, that seems to be a level of quarterback influence that fans probably never think about, because I don't think about it that much. I mean, how does the quarterback get them into a better spot for the running game with checks?
Well, the biggest thing is, and again, I don't know how the Bears do it, so I don't want to, knock that comment at all. But all I would say is that, and again, that's a part of it, and you have to see it. But, for me, when I did it, I wasn't like a genius on, reading these fronts and going, oh, they're in this, so let me check to this play in our playbook. Most of the time, we just had run checks. So, let's just say, for instance, we called a trap check. And so the trap was designed to go to the right. And I noticed that they were in, an under front, and we wanted to go to the widest tackle. So I would just go opposite. Or we would call 2 runs in the huddle, and they would give me the key. Hey, if they're in an over front, alert it to this. And if they're not in an over front, then just leave it the way it is. And so,
well, wouldn't that be impressive? Wouldn't that be impressive for a rookie quarterback in his 5th start, even if he's just doing that?
No, that's what I expect him to do. So I expect him to be able to see the front and do what the coaches tell you to do. Now, if he's up there going, one run play is called and he's taking some other play from the playbook and going, hey, I think this play's better, and check into that run, I would be overly impressed. But, yeah, that's part of the job. And so, maybe there's a lot of rookie quarterbacks that struggle with that and just kind of leave the run on, or even to the point where the coach says, we can't even give him an alert. We can't give him a kill. We got to just run what we run because he's not able to recognize it. So I don't want to diminish it completely. I'm just saying that most of the time in the run game, even for a guy like me that had been in the league for 12 years, I wasn't just, using the whole menu of our run game and check into a bunch of different runs just because I thought they were going to be good. They simplified it for me, even where it's like, okay, look at this defensive tackle. If he's in a 3 technique, run this. If he's in a 1 technique, run that. Don't screw it up, Kurt. Just look at that one guy and we'll simplify it for you. My job was more on the back end, but again, anything that you take from a rookie that's doing those little things to help allow you to be more successful, you're going to take it after 5 games. And it almost sounds like Cole was just saying, we're seeing progress in a lot of different areas. And even in the run game, even helping us to be more successful the last couple of weeks because he's better able to recognize what he sees up front.
Might be the legendary Chicago low bar for quarterbacking on display here, Lawrence.
And again, I don't want to low bar it because, just a matter of, I don't want to pretend like that's rocket science either in a lot of situations, but it's a good thing. It's a box to check that he's seeing things and he's making the right decision.
Kurt, I had the chance yesterday to do our pre and post game show with Patrick Manley and Olin Kreutz. And I love talking with those guys about all sorts of things football related. But it was interesting. Like Olin got really introspective about learning how to win. And some of the things that you were saying in the last answer kind of triggered that for me. So I wanted to know, what were the things that you felt like you had picked up along the way that were indicators of you learning how to win?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing on the teams that I was on and the idea of learning how to win was not panicking when things went against us. Because so often when you're in an organization that has never won, and that's ironic, I was talking to Aaron Rodgers this week before the game, and it was one of the things that he mentioned, the idea of building a culture. And the Jets, have not won a lot in recent years. And so it's so easy for people when things don't go well to start pointing fingers. And it's so easy to go, here we go again, right? I mean, this is what happens, somebody's going to screw it up and, we're going to fall behind and we're never going to be able to get back into it. So one of the biggest things for me is just the ability to start to believe and to have hope, regardless of what goes on, that you're in a place where you can win football games. And so that to me is probably the biggest thing when it comes to building that kind of winning culture and learning how to win. It's making the plays in the moment. It's not panicking when you make a mistake. It's not, looking around or getting tight when, you had a lead and all of a sudden it's tied and the other team tied it up and you're not panicking like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? It's believing that you're going to make the next play and you're going to do what needs to be done to be in a football game. And so, Aaron talked to us about that. They fall down 17-0 against Minnesota yesterday. And, it wasn't a great game and their offense didn't look prolific by any means, but they fought their way back into it. And they made some plays and their defense stepped up and their offense made a few plays along the way and they got themselves back into a football game. And that's part of that process is being able to do that. Another part of the process is beating the teams you're supposed to beat. So playing against Carolina yesterday, they were favorites. They were supposed to win, and they went out and dominated that football game and won. So that's another part of it is that, you go into games against teams you're supposed to beat, and, you don't, chalk it up that we're going to win. You don't think, you're good enough that you can just step on the field. You go out and play the game and you dominate teams that you're supposed to dominate. And so those are the things that you see in the boxes that you like to check as you're building that culture and starting to believe that you can win.
The Bears are getting ready. They're leaving today for London. What advice do you have for them?
Man, I don't even know. There's so many teams that do it so many different ways. coming over here, and I don't really know the best way to do it. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to try to find your groove as fast as you can. And, having been over here just calling games for a number of years, you never really know when it's going to hit you. Is that you get over here and you think, oh, I'm good. I slept on the plane. Everything's good. And then, 7 o'clock the next day, you just hit this wall and you can't get away from it. And so it's trying to get here early enough, trying to figure out your schedule, sleeping when you need to, so you feel like you're rested and can put your best foot forward. And so it's really hard to know, what that routine should be. And it's why there's so many different teams and coaches that do it so many different ways, because nobody really has a blueprint on the best way to do it. And so to me, it was always about sleep when you had the opportunity to sleep, try to get your rest and get rested up and get on the schedule as soon as you possibly could.
Anything funky for the team in terms of the in-game experience or in-stadium experience itself?
I think the atmosphere is great. The fans are awesome. So that part's going to be fun. You always have to prepare for probably a little bit of condensation at some point. There's always going to be a little bit of rain. The turf has never been the best over here, although they're doing a better job in Tottenham. They've created kind of their own turf and bought their own turf for the NFL game. So you hope that wasn't the case. But you saw in the Jets game this past weekend, some guys were slipping. And, so learning the footing, being comfortable with the footing, make sure you bring different cleats and get ready for that. But outside of that, it's a great environment. It's a fun environment to play in. And I don't think it's going to be anything crazy like pregame or beforehand on what these guys have to do. It's more just being able to manage a little bit of the different climate here and the environment from that standpoint.
Kurt, thanks so much, man. You're the best, especially because you see the Caleb progress this week.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week.